I think we all want to have good relationships with our students. I mean, we're teachers. We became teachers because we care, right? But how do we actually build meaningful relationships with students in the short time that we have them in our classroom? My name is Megan and I've been an ESL teacher for about 10 years and I am very good at building relationships with students. I would say for the first 4 years of my career, I really only focused on two things. Number one, building relationships. Number two, making learning fun. Should I have focused on other things? Probably, but I didn't. During those 4 years, I became very good at building relationships with students. However, in the last few years, I've gotten a little bit removed from that. I've lost that focus. So if you watched my last video, you know that building relationships with students is one of my 2024 goals. And today I want to share a couple of tips with you about how to build better relationships with your students. Welcome to Teacher Talk episode number 2, where we just sit down with a cup of coffee and we talk about what it means to be a teacher. And today I'm going to share 10 tips of how to build better relationships with your students. Maybe you'll get your own ideas, but this is also for me as well because I want to improve this. And I guess Pretzel wants to improve relationships too. Are you interested in hearing the ideas? All right, let's get into the 10 tips. Now, some of these are going to be really simple and then they'll get a little bit more complicated. So the first idea that I have is number 1, basic necessity: learn their names and learn them fast. This next semester, I will have brand new students, and one of my goals is to learn their names by week 2. I only see my students once a week, so this is going to be a difficult task, but I do have several techniques for how I remember students' names. Even though I'm going to be learning a couple of hundred names, I definitely have some techniques in place. If I can learn their name at the very beginning of the semester and show them that I know their names, that's a really good place to start opening up the relationship, because in the past I've learned their names, but I haven't let them know that I knew all of their names. So number 1, I want to learn all of their names within the first 2 weeks. I do have a couple of techniques for how I do this. One of the things I do is called the name game, and it's an icebreaker activity I do at the very first lesson, so I can learn all of their names as quickly as possible. If you want to know how to play it, I'll put a link to an article I wrote about it. I also take notes about their names. I also do certain things with homework assignments so that I can review their names at the very beginning of the semester and make sure I know everybody's name. Number 2 is just spending more time in the classroom, coming to class a little bit early, talking with them during the break, and then being willing to stay a little bit extra if possible. Because of COVID, there were just a couple of things that got in the way of me spending that extra time with them, so I want to get back into that. Coming to class at least 10 minutes early, talking with them during the breaks, and being okay with staying a few minutes after if they want to talk. Ideas number 3 and 4 are kind of related. Number 3 is I want to give them more personal assignments and give them more personal discussion questions in class. During the last few years, I've been teaching a lot of serious business courses, which means that when they were practicing with their partner and creating a conversation, it was about marketing techniques or HR problems. But this next semester, I'm going to be teaching listening and speaking. And so I just want to give them more personalized discussion topics. When we talk about personalities, I want them to share their own opinions about what makes a good leader, or how they would describe themselves, or how their personality has changed from middle school till now. Asking these more personal type of questions. I mean, we're not getting too personal. We're not getting invasive here, but just making it a little bit more personal opens the door for these more intimate conversations that I can learn more about them and how they think their personality has changed and how they view the world. So as I plan my lessons each week, I want to actively make sure that I'm adding in a lot of these personalized discussion questions and topics. Along with that, number 4 is I want to share more about myself. Because I've been so business focused the last few semesters, I haven't really shared a lot about my own personal opinions or my own ideas about the world or my own life experiences. So I just want to make sure to add a little bit of that. I used to do that all the time when I first started teaching. I would tell students my experiences or what I did in college, and it just created this better relationship between us because we all understood each other a little bit better. So that is something else I want to add in. Now, a goal without a plan is not really much of anything. So I want to set a plan for how I can accomplish number 3 and number 4. Each week when I plan my lessons, I want to challenge myself to go back through and make sure I have one question that will lead itself to a very personalized discussion, regardless of the topic. I also want to look through the lesson and see, perhaps as I'm introducing the discussion topic or the conversation topic, I want to see which experience or personal opinion I can add as well to make sure that in each lesson, I'm sharing a little bit about myself and I'm giving my students the opportunity to share about themselves as well. And of course, while students are discussing and talking, I am walking around the classroom and I'm interacting with them. Not only can I just listen to different conversations that are happening, but then I can talk directly with the students as well and ask them to share their own personal ideas and opinions as I walk around the room. Now, number 5 is one I know is a direct result of COVID. Here in China, we had COVID prevention policies for 3 years, and that basically meant that my students were stuck on campus for 3 years. And I think it really changed how I interact with my students because in the past, when I would walk around the class and talk to them during breaks and talk to them before class, I would ask them questions like, what did you do this weekend? What was the best thing that happened to you this week? What do you plan to do next weekend? I would ask them all of these questions that would lead to deeper conversations, but because my students were just stuck on campus for 3 years, I got into the habit of avoiding those questions because what did they do last weekend? Nothing. What do they do in their free time? Nothing. So I got into the really bad habit of always asking about their schoolwork. So for number 5, I don't want to ask about their work. Instead, I want to ask about them. I got into the bad habit of asking, which class do you think is most difficult this semester? Or do you have a lot of homework this week? Are you really busy this week? How many presentations do you have this week? And it was like all the questions I would talk about were focused on work because that's the only thing we could all talk about. And number 1, the problem with that is that I didn't get to know them as personally. But number 2, I also don't want to spend my time with them and let them think that I am focusing only on their study or on their work. There's so much more to life, and I don't want them to think that I'm a workaholic or think that they should be workaholics or studyaholics. I want them to be seen and respected as a human being, not as a student who is doing homework, a student who is completing presentations, a student who is preparing for exams. There's so much more than that, and I want my conversations to reflect that mindset, not a different one. For number 6, something else I want to do is I want to comment on more things and compliment them more. And I really want to be intentional about my compliments. I have a little bit of an interesting experience being an international teacher in China. How do I put this? Because I am an international teacher, there are just more eyes on me. And people tend to remember the things I say because it's such a novelty to interact with an American that the interactions they have are quite significant. And I knew this, and I know this, but at the end of last semester, I happened to sit next to one of the other Chinese teachers at my school. And he said, "Oh, Megan, thank you so much for answering that question a while ago. I remember 2 semesters ago, I asked you this question, blah, 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 and you said blah, blah, blah." And I was so reminded of how much people remember the things that I say to them. And that can be a dangerous thing But that can also be a really excellent thing. I know that if I compliment my students and I tell them that they really have excellent pronunciation or they really have a great command of their vocabulary, things I say to them might stay with them. So I want to be more intentional about complimenting students and giving them feedback. I really want to be free with my compliments. Maybe that is complimenting their work and say that they did an excellent job on their grammar and they chose really native vocabulary. Or it could be something like, I think your phone case is so cool, or your makeup looks really beautiful today. I really like your sneakers. Another thing I want to do is I want to attend more events if possible, because seeing students inside the classroom is great. That's my core way to build relationships with them. But every time I happen to see students outside of the classroom, it just creates a different feeling. So as COVID prevention measures have gone away, I know our school is going to have more competitions, basketball games, presentations, recitals, video filming, and those are actually really great opportunities for me to mingle with students and interact with students in a new way. So if at all possible, I would like to do that, but maybe your school has a ton of things that you can join really, really easily. The next thing I want to do, number 8, is add in more about culture. Like I said, the last few years we've been very focused on professional vocabulary, business terms, but this semester I really want to lean more into sharing about culture, because for me as an American teacher in China, I have a great opportunity to share about American culture. And I think for a little bit of time, I got a little bit tired of sharing about American culture just because it was boring for me, because I had done it so many times. But I have to remember that these students are brand new every couple of years. They haven't heard these things before. And being able to share about culture is not only a valuable part of learning a language, but I think it's also a really great way for us to build more rapport. And as I share about culture, I often share my own experiences in China. So I'm telling stories about how shocked I was to see this happen, or I tell a story about the first time I was given hot water at a restaurant, and it just creates a more relaxed atmosphere. We get to know each other a little bit better, and we also learn about culture. So in my mind, adding more cultural elements is just a win-win-win situation. So something else I want to do then is at the end of every lesson, make sure I have at least a little bit of a cultural note added in there. Now, number 9 is a really interesting one for me, because number 9 is playing more games. And when I first became an ESL teacher, I lived for games. One, I wasn't very good at teaching, and I needed something to fill my class time. But also number 2, I wanted to make learning fun. So playing games was a huge part of every single one of my lessons. Like I said, I've gotten into more business topics. We didn't have as much time for things like games. You know what? I should take that back. I should not say we didn't have enough time. It's just that my focus was different and I wasn't focusing and I wasn't making the time for games. But playing games in your classroom is such a great way to build inside jokes and just lighten up the mood of the classroom and make everyone feel a little bit more comfortable with each other and a little bit more connected. If you're looking for games, I have a ton of games on the website, atlasteaching.com. Every game I've posted is something that I have actually used in the classroom and I've found out that it actually works. So scroll through there, find one that you think will be good for your classroom. And the last one, number 10, is I want to give more personalized homework. Now I know this is more work for me, but I think this is one of the things that's worth it. During the last semester, I used a lot of homework exercises that were inside the textbook. Things like fill in the blank, multiple choice, true, false. And to check their homework, I would just walk around and see that they had filled in all of the questions and all of the answers. The homework I used to do, though, was much more personalized. I would say something like, watch a TV show and write down 5 new words that you learned, or listen to an English song and write down 5 new words that you learned. Or I would ask them to write down 5 sentences about one of the personal topics we had talked about in class. all of those were just so much more personalized because as I'm walking around the room, I'm able to see, oh, what TV show did you watch? What TV show did you watch? Oh, I love that TV show too. Oh, I think this character is really, really funny. Oh, I love that song. I love that singer. I actually got to see them in concert a couple years ago. It just lends itself to more casual conversations and it helps me get to know them a little bit better. And at the same time, they probably get to know me a little bit better as well. So, those are my 10 ideas for how to build better relationships among your students. Now, these are just a couple of ideas. Maybe you have more. If you do, leave them in the comments below. I really want this place to be an area where people can share ideas and learn from each other because when I first started teaching, I did not know what I was doing. I wished I had a place where I could go to find ideas and get advice, especially a place where I could find community, where other people were trying to improve their teaching skills as well. So if you have any other ideas, please leave them in the comments below. We can all learn from each other. If you're looking for more tips, advice, inspiration, tricks, ideas, you can visit the website atlasteaching.com. You can also come back here for weekly videos. Good luck building relationships with your students. Here's to having really excellent conversations, really good discussions, and just building those meaningful relationships. That's all for today. I will see you next time.